The Cowboys should win the Big 12 title with this many freshmen ready to play, and Mike Gundy's making more money moves this time. It's an SEC-sized power move that surely the visionary Brett Yormark is even proud of.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at Aldeo State. Today, we're partially brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers get a $5 bet that equals 3 free weeks of NFL Sunday ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. Meanwhile, we get started in some of the news in Cowboy country. It's great news. It is a visionary-esque Brett Yormark level news that is so big that surely the SEC is envious. We know that the SEC was pretty envious of Brett Yormark making some of the moves of the Big 12 title game, the WWE, and all the things that we were doing for the media days, which is why he relocated everything to Texas to be in the backyard right next to us. Well, we moved it to Vegas. We had to switch it up and continue to be the leaders of the Big 12. You're having conversations about the CBC private partnership that would equal 20% share of the Big 12 conference, but financially put us closer to the SEC and the Big 10. You're talking about some of the proprietary rights, like having a Love's or a Dr. Pepper or an Allstate for the naming rights. Yeah, that's a visionary move that could potentially put the Big 12 at a higher position. Now, Oklahoma State is making a visionary move. And let's be fair, Oklahoma State is not usually at the forefront of making some big-time moves, especially in the sport of football. This new QR code on the helmets is a move that everybody in the country is not only envious of, but surely this is going to become a thing. Every time Ollie Gordon scores a touchdown, you're going to be able to scan the QR code. Every time the Cowboys are looking to, capitalize in the red zone, you're going to have the opportunity to get in on the QR code thing. I think this is genius. And of course, right, it's going to be put on the back of the helmet, but there's people putting out jokes, so maybe you should put it on the front of the helmet, right? And it does make some sense, because whenever you score a touchdown, especially defensively, and everybody goes, towards the camera and they do a pose, and if you could get a QR code there, that would be a great idea. This is a beautiful move. This is going to be able to get Oklahoma State in living rooms that have an effect on people. And let's face it, there's going to be some people in the Pac-12 that are going to be somewhat longing for a Big 12 fan base to cheer for, whether you're Oregon State or Washington State or a team like Boise State or Memphis that didn't quite get in, but you're wanting to follow the Big 12. Oklahoma State is going to now provide you even more of a way to be more connected, to feel more connected. And that's just it. It is all as a fan base. Every fan base in the country wants to feel more connected to their guys. They want to have more understanding on what's happening on a day-to-day basis and how they can reach and how they can interact and how they can be a part of it. And some people that want to donate don't have the money to donate the dollar bills necessary to get the posse parking or to get the VIP club level stuff. So there's a decent amount of people out there that would like to help, that would like to contribute. Now they have a way to do so. Guys, could you imagine just being a random fan from the West Coast and you're watching the Oklahoma State game and you hear the story of Colin Clay, or you hear kind of some of the trials and tribulations that Trey Rucker has gone through, or some of the injuries that a couple of the offensive line have had to, sift through. You're a casual fan that might be looking at that story and watching that player and just be like, you know what? I want to give $10 to Oklahoma State right now. Now you're going to have the opportunity to do so. This is so fun that Oklahoma State's at the forefront of this because, realistically speaking, this is yet another way to have more marketability. And marketability is something that I don't know that we've always been able to push, just like the marketing campaign for the Heisman, Ollie. I haven't really seen it officially kick off. I'm sure Oklahoma State's going to do something to help kick it off. But we're just now getting some of these realistic, Heisman top 10 odds coming in. So maybe they'll wait a little bit on that. But This is a wonderful way for fans, Oklahoma State fans and fans outside of Oklahoma State, who may just be watching a game, who may like a story, they may like a player, they may like a play. Heck, they may have had a couple extra drinks and they're just feeling extra generous to a random individual, or somebody is going to want to feel like they contributed. And if they can't contribute as a quote unquote donor, there's several people out there that would love to give $10, $20, $50, $100. This is a perfect way to do it. And mark it down. Now that we have put this out there, there's going to be several other teams that do their best to try to copy it. And I don't blame them, because it's a big time move. Brett Yormark is even kind of telling some of the other people in the league, like, hey, this is all O State. O State did this. They're the first team in America to think of it and come up with it and make it a reality. But the other teams in the Big 12 should join the fold. All right. Before we skedaddle to section number 2, I did want to talk about some of the fall MVPs. Just as a quick update, right? In the famous words of Ricky Bobby, if you ain't first, you're last. We're the QR code geniuses that thought of this first. Spring MVPs is a little bit of a refresher. Offensively, the spring MVP was Rashad Owens, because I was underestimating him and I was assuming that his drops were going to keep carrying over, just like I was assuming Alan Bowman was going to keep bailing, fit 17 yards in the pocket. Both of those things seemingly have changed. So we gave it to Rashad. Defensively, Obi Ezegbo's been able to provide a different layer at that spot that we didn't have previously. So anytime we were envious of not having Colin Oliver up there, now you're going to have Obi Ezegbo being able to take that spot. Special teams, we honestly probably should have went with Hudson Clark just because of the athletic development, but we did go with Logan Ward, right? We're trying to see some more out of Logan Ward, knowing he was going through a competition. But that competition has changed a little bit, as has Logan Ward. The most improved over the spring, we gave it to offensively Cameron Hurd, defensively Jaleel Johnson. The freshman of the spring was, of course, Josh Ford. And the coach MVP of the spring, I would say, was Paul Randolph, just from an excitement standpoint. So the fall MVPs, offensively, I mentioned him. Got to give him this respect here. Alan Crawdaddy Bowman may not be Crawdaddy anymore. He has, in fact, changed his stance inside the pocket. He's much more aware and he's not bailing so often. He doesn't have that old school, I got to run now clock, it appears. So if he carries that over into the season, he should have the improvement that a lot of people are looking for. Defensively, another dude that I think a lot of us have questioned over his time as a Cowboy, and that's Corey Black. Not just because we've heard that he is now the fastest player on the team, but the development on that side of the ball is going to afford us several opportunities to be able to play a lot of man, but not only man, I think we're going to be able to play on the island with a decent amount of press man, and it starts with Corey Black. Special teams, since we should have gave it to Hudson and we gave it to Logan, we probably should give it to Logan right now, because I do know that the influx of Sean Snyder has completely revolutionized some of the small, intricate details in his form. But guys, Hudson Clark is he's an athletic dude that we haven't had since Luke Phillips, right? And yes, go look that name up. There's going to be some people watching the show that have no clue who that is and have never heard that name. But it was the last dude that we were able to get super innovative with, right, in the Les Miles days and the Mike Gundy being a young cat coordinator days, to do some crazy off-the-wall stuff, some crazy fakes, whether it be field goals or punts. I think this is the season we see more of that, because we finally have a guy in Hudson Clark that can make it look crazy, crazy different than ever before. The transfer MVP for the spring, we went with Kyler Pearson, right? He stepped up as a running back. He stepped up in the slot package. He stepped up to take some of the Arlen Bruce stuff that we implemented this previous season. It's kind of sad to see Kyler Pearson get pushed down a little bit now that we've had DeJuan Lofton and Gavin Freeman kind of show up and show out. But I think he is still good enough that no matter what, we're going to find a way to squeeze him on the field. But that was the spring transfer MVP, the new transfer MVP, and this is running away with it by 70,000 country miles. It's Ayo Shotomide King. Guys, Dijon Stribling may be the most talented wide receiver that we have returning outside of Brennan Presley. I mean, he might even be overall a little bit more talented than Brennan, and he might not get all of the snaps that we thought he was going to get in the spring just because of Ayo Shotomide King. The most improved freshman, Sesi Vealahe, on offense. Defensive, Gabe Brown, the Stillwater High School linebacker, is ready to play. He just happens to be log jammed and behind a bunch of upperclassmen. The coach MVP has got to be Joe Bob Clements. You've already got one of the top linebacker cores in the country. Then you add Kendall Daniels to the mix on top of some of the freshmen like Gunnar Wilson and Jonathan Agumato, maybe even Tamarick Johnson, that are pushing some of these guys to stay locked in and do more than they've ever had to previously in the film room, developmentally, all that fun jazz. So got to go with Joe Bob here. And then, of course, the freshman of the spring. I've already mentioned him a couple times. It's going to be Gunnar Wilson. Guys, the 6'3", 216-pound linebacker doesn't move like you would think for his age. He doesn't sift through the defense with a lot of confusion. He's able to do it pretty quickly. He's able to get in the right hole. If he's taking on a lead blocker, 90% of the time, that lead blocker stands no chance. I don't care if it's Jake Schultz, Luke McIndoe, Bryce Drummond, Trent Howland. Gunnar Wilson is a dude that's sticking his nose in there and making his presence felt every single day. So he's my freshman MVP for the fall. Guys, we got to jump into another bold take. Well, actually, it's the first bold take, I guess you could say, of the season, and it's going to be in regards to some of those freshmen that will play, that will not redshirt. But before we do that, I have to remind the fine folks out here that sometimes it's all about saving. Now that school is back in action, you're going to want to save as much as you can. So make sure you get with Ibata today. Whether you're looking to get back into school or you're trying to take a little bit more stress off of your life, use Ibata and get cash back on all of your purchases when you stock up on the back-to-school essentials. Ibata is a free app that lets you earn cash back every single time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items from groceries, beauty supplies, even on toys. You can make sure that you're beating inflation no matter what with what you're purchasing, thanks to Ibata. The average Ibata user earns an extra $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip for you. That fight you've been fighting can get a little bit easier right now with Ibata. Over 50 million users are waiting for you to join them to get money back every time you go shopping right now. Ibata's offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibata and using the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, when you register. That's $5 just for simply using it and seeing how it goes. Just go to the App Store or the Google Play Store and download the app for free. The Ibata app is what you need to start earning cash back. Make sure you use that code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word. That is Ibata, IBOTTA, in the Google Play or App Store. Make sure you use that code LOCKEDONCollege. You know you gotta go get hooked up today with Ibata. Just like we need to get hooked up with a bunch of freshmen. Now, I do know off the outset, this does sound pretty crazy. If you were to tell me, right, in the spring, Cody, at some point in time in the year, we'll have 4, maybe even 5 freshmen playing, I would have told you were absolutely crazy. To return 21 starters and 90% of your roster with all of the coaching staff that we're able to continuously bring back, it didn't make a lot of sense to assume that there was going to be a freshman in the lineup. Now, very early on, Josh Ford was able to separate himself from most everybody else. Lando Cleveland started off very hot, right? But then he dealt with an injury that kind of put him back in a green jersey, slowed him down a little bit. We've seen some other dudes kind of pop up and make a name for themselves. Well, last year, the Big 12 title game, and at certain points in the season, we did have a lean a little bit more on Sesi Vealahe than we obviously intended to. So there wasn't an overabundance of freshmen that were able to kind of carve out a role for themselves last season. But ironically enough, was it 2 years ago that almost 90% of our wide receivers at one point in time were all freshmen? So it kind of goes in layers. Of course, you don't want to have to use a freshman when you go 3 deep at almost every single position across the board. Finally, for maybe the first time ever, to have 3 deep at every spot where you don't have a big drop-off and a bunch of major concerns if you were to have some injuries pop up. Now, of course, we don't want that to happen, but it's crazy to think, again, that some freshmen could be playing on this team with the 35, 36 some odd seniors, the 16 redshirt juniors, all of the returning upperclassmen. The log jams that you're going to see is pretty crazy. But to me, there's a group of freshmen that are pushing so hard and doing enough to show the coaches that they are, in fact, ready to play and contribute right away, right here, right now, at least to some degree. Not going to be a massive surprise, so feel free to beat me in the comment section for all of my YouTube folks out there. Beat me on who you think the top 5 freshmen are that are going to play this season. Number 1 is going to be easy peasy because he goes way back with the Gundy family, and he's made a name for himself from the very beginning of spring as more than just a blocker, and that is tight end Josh Ford. Guys, you know how I am about Quentin Stewart, right? I love his development, his passion. And if you look last year on film, he did a lot of things right. But Josh Ford athletically can do some things that Quentin Stewart just cannot. And from a size perspective, he walked in the building light years different than Quentin Stewart. So if there's going to be a battle for tight end 2 at some point in time in the season, Josh Ford's going to have every opportunity to win that battle and do the most with it. Number 2, I just mentioned him, Gunnar Wilson. Gunnar Wilson is, again, a dude that walks in playing a little bit of tight end, a little bit of halfback, fullback, running back, free safety, strong safety. It didn't matter, defensive end, whatever it was a necessity for him at his high school. And Melissa is what he did. He didn't focus in on one position until his senior year, and even then, he did have to play some tight end, right? So it wasn't specifically that he went all towards defensive end or linebacker. It's that he still got to do a lot. So him coming in, he had to be able to learn everything very, very quickly. He was able to do that. Therefore, with that size, that speed, that strength, him being able to come in and learn the playbook very, very quickly is going to afford him some opportunities, even if it's on special teams. He's just too good, too big, too talented, and too intelligent to not get on the field in some capacity. If we're going to go for intelligence and needing to get on the field, that is David Bango right next to him. Both coming from the same area in Texas. They think the same, they react the same, and they handle the game as freshmen the same. The only thing I could say maybe for David Kabongo is he could use a little bit more body by glass, of course, but most of these kids could. We're pretty deep at safety, so it's not a necessity, but it's not a necessity for Gunnar Wilson either, just like it's not exactly a necessity for Josh Ford. It's all about talent. If you can keep climbing up the depth chart, you're going to give yourself an opportunity. And, I think the battles between people like Ike Essenwoon and Gunnar Wilson are going to be beautiful for them together moving forward. David Kabongo, of course, right? Number 3 here. He was one of the individuals that athletically, we knew had some talent. That's why he had so many offers from places like Texas and A&M and Oregon, because he gets it too. And he's more gifted than a lot of people saw in the recruiting evaluation stages. Maybe it was a size type of thing, but that's the perfect fit for us. We know when it comes to size, we have the best in the country in Rob Glass. So if you're going to get developed and you're looking for, the ability to carve out a role for yourself, take yourself to a place where you can play the most amount of games, to get the most amount of film, to get into the NFL, Oklahoma State is more and more proving a dang good spot to do that. Another individual that, just athletically is on a little bit of a different plane than everybody else, kind of reminiscent to where Kendall Daniels came in. That's partially why Kendall Daniels was a redshirt freshman All-American, because he was able to do some things that most people cannot do from a physiological standpoint. Well, Lando Cleveland is the exact same way. He's fresh off of the green jersey, which means don't hit me too daggone hard because I'm still dealing with something. He's fresh off of that. But in a small sample size, he's showing why he was one of the top, if not the top, recruits of this previous class. And he athletically is already gifted enough to see the field as is. If he can get the communication down and the understanding of the defense to where it's, muscle memory as opposed to overthinking, Lando's going to find a spot on the field this season. I wanted to stay there, right? Those are the 4 freshmen I feel most confident about. But guys, we just recently have seen that you can have injuries pop up whenever, sometimes serious, sometimes not serious, sometimes kind of in between. If we have injuries pop up at any point in time in the season at running back, it is clear by the few practices that Ollie Gordon missed, Rodney Fields is going to get extra carries. And I have a correction here. The other day I said he was from BTW, which is dumb because I talked about him and his cousin LaDainian Fields coming over from Dale City. I apologize. He didn't come from BTW. He came with his cousin. at Dale City, which is also why I think we're going to have a decent shot at Rickland Holmes II, who is also at Dale City. So those are the freshmen that, in my opinion, are going to have an opportunity to play at some point in time this season. Whether it's a blowout, whether it's, a fourth quarter kind of thing, whether it's special teams, punt team, kickoff team, whatever it may be, I feel like those freshmen are just too good to not get on the field in some capacity. So I expect that to be happening. Just like I also expect us to win the Big 12 championship, but there's ways that we can, there's ways that we can't, and there's possibly ways that it could be crazy. Plus, we have an announcement to make. Before we do that, ladies and gentlemen, it is money-making season. Sometimes you need to save money with Ibata. Sometimes you got to make money with FanDuel. We talk about FanDuel all the time because it's America's number one sports book, right? And we have continually climbed in the betting game ourselves. We all know something. It's a little bit different for you now. What we're doing is through September 22nd, right now through September 22, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and then get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. With the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game, and all you'll need is a Google account and a current form of payment. You can cancel at any point in time. Get squared away today and hooked up with FanDuel, and also a little bit of NFL Sunday Ticket action. Make sure you visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. You need to download America's number one sportsbook today. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to download today. Get in on the action. Of course, we're going to hammer the over here in Cowboy Country. They could have made the over and under 9.5, and we would have still been hammering the over. We're going to talk about some bold takes, some of the things that we got wrong, some of the things we got right, but I want to save that a little bit later on for the week because I feel like that's an episode that we have to have a guest for, so we have a little bit of back and forth, right? A little bit of give and take. So we're going to hold off on that a little bit and talk about why Oklahoma State should win the Big 12 title and why possibly not. So this is stemming from a pistols firing article, and make sure we give credit's due. Because we give credit when RA does some cool stuff, and we give credit when Marshall or McLean or whoever puts out some pretty awesome stuff. This one came from Marshall Scott, and it was in regards to how they could win the Big 12 title, 3 reasons why, and three reasons why not. Sorry, no, it was Kyle Cox. Kyle Cox, pistols firing. All right. One of the biggest reasons that they put on display that Oklahoma State should be able to win the Big 12 title is they have a big 3. They talked about, having Whedon, Blackman, and Randall, or Rudolph, Washington Hill. Very good things to think of. Well, I'm with them here, but this goes far beyond the big 3. You can consider Ollie Gordon, Alan Bowman, Vernon Presley a big 3 if you wanted to. You can consider Nick Martin, Colin Oliver, and Kendall Daniels a big 3 if you wanted to. Heck, you could consider Rashad Owens, Brennan Presley, and DeJon Stribling by themselves to some degree a big 3. You could say Joe Maholsky, Dalton Cooper, and Preston Wilson are a big 3. So I will take that and I will raise you and say, yes, you're absolutely right. We have a big 3, but we have a big 3 plus a big 3 plus a big 3 plus a big another 3 somewhere in there as well. That is a good one. Number 2, they listed the offensive line. Of course, the continuity, 172 starts between the 5 guys, over 220 starts whenever you take into consideration that you have Isaiah Glass, Taylor Matirko, and, help me out here, Jason Queso Brooks. Thank you much. I appreciate you. That was their second reason, and I don't have anything to add to that because I think that they're spot on. This is the offensive line that Charlie Dickey always wanted to build. I do indeed believe this is the best line Charlie Dickey's ever had, including all of his years at Kansas State. This is his time. This is his line. I think he's going to be able to prove that, not just in run protection like last season, but I think there's going to be a massive evolutionary process this year in pass pro. The number 3 reason he gave why the Cowboys will win the Big 12 title in 2024 is we are battle tested. That's true. If you just look up and down the numbers, there's a large portion of this roster that is still here from some of the COVID hangover style of situations. So the fact that we have all these 6th-year, 7th-year guys means that we've not only battle tested in the Big 12, but we've got a few dudes that have been battle tested on other teams in the Big 12, other leagues outside of the Big 12, like Trent Hallen and the Big 10. Now, they gave some reasons why we could lose the Big 12 title or not even get there. Number one being the defense not being able to clean up the key issues, right? If you're talking about the number of plays or you're talking about the 141st ranked pass pro or the 123rd ranked, overall defense, things of that nature. If you don't fix those, then you're going to have a rough day. If you don't get better in third downs, you're going to have a rough day. If you're leading the conference in forced fumbles and like fumble recoveries, it doesn't mean as much if you can't get to the other things first. I would expound upon that a little bit, and I would say outside of the defense not making mistakes, to me, the biggest thing that would be a setback to Oklahoma State winning the Big 12 title this season is, are we going to get in our own way? Whether that be Mike Gundy or Casey Dunn, I don't see Brian Nardo making this problem, but Casey Dunn has been a roadblock to himself most of his offensive coordinator career. I mean, there's times that you look at things very common sense and you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. So the only reason we would do that is if Mike Gundy overrode Casey Dunn, because Casey Dunn is not dumb enough to make that decision. We've been saying that for so many years now. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe Casey Dunn is dumb enough to make some pretty wild decisions. Or maybe it's just, cause for concern. Maybe it's not wanting to push the envelope a little bit too much to cause unnecessary turnovers and things of that nature. Sure, somewhat understandable, but more so than the defense. I'm not worried about the defense whatsoever. I don't think that we're going to have any concerns, right? I'll save some of that for the bold takes episode, but defensively, you guys know how I feel. I feel like this is a 2021-esque looking defense, a 2011 style defense, but with a significantly better depth behind what we had in 2021. Maybe if you dig back to 1984, you can see some 2021 stuff that I think could be fairly reminiscent of this defense. So my concern is more on Mike Gundy and Casey Dunn. Is Mike Gundy going to be a little bit more of an old school riverboat gambler? Is Mike Gundy going to allow Sean Snyder to do his thing? Is Casey Dunn going to take the top off the defense, or is he going to keep calling screenplays 733 times a season, knowing exactly what the defense is going to do? Because if you think back to South Alabama, I know we switched it back to a power-oriented run game after that debacle, but it was so sad having so many players, including several Okies, talk about how that was actually the easiest thing to prepare for was our offense. And they could just sit back and they could see certain coverages and certain guys in motions and know exactly what route concepts were coming. And sure enough, they would just sit on those routes. And they made us look very pedestrian. So we had to start leaning on the run game after that. Is that going to improve? Because that's been an issue under Casey Dunn every single year. He's been an offensive coordinator. This year, I almost feel like they cannot mess this up unless they get in their own way. And by they, I'm primarily talking about Casey Dunn. We saw Mike Gundy step up and do some things last year that was slightly uncharacteristic. So my concern is not really Mike Gundy. I think Mike Gundy understands the lay of the land and how important this season is for capitalization. So I do anticipate him being more bold, him not being so conservative. But it's also going to come down to Casey Dunn. Casey Dunn's got to be able to put the guys in the best position to be successful. And he hasn't done that one time yet as an OC, unless I'm missing something. Let me know down in the comment section for everybody in the YouTube side of life. Am I missing some really awesome sauce that Casey Dunn mixes up? Because so far, it's all been very, very predictable, and the defenses can predict it as well. And the only thing that changed last year is we decided to hand the ball off so much that it caught defenses by surprise, and our running back was so daggone good that it was hard for them to adjust their game plan mid-game. So, to me, it's not so much the D that could slow us down. To me, it's Casey Dunn. Are you going to do more than you've done previously as an OC? I pray that you will. If so, we should have the season that we all think is possible. All right. Until the next one, I reckon that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, you know I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Like it if you like the daggone thing. Dislike it if you don't. That's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. Let's keep growing this community. I'm podcasting people out there. You know what to do. Hit the stars, leave a review. Later, my taters.